Welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Juli Baranik, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving CEOs connect with their dream clients to scale to seven figures and beyond. And I'm here today with my friend Meredith Brough. Hey, Meredith.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a unique topic, and I'm excited to dive in today. So, for those that haven't had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell us what you do with your business?
Yeah, so I work with mothers mostly, but parents in general, to help them feel revitalized, energized, and at peace. And a lot of that has to do with sleep, as we all know, but also understanding little ones. I think that's one of the biggest struggles when you become a mother is what in the world is going on? Who are these kids? What should I expect? How do I relate to them? What do they need? All that stuff. So that's my favorite part of what I do is really helping moms just understand their kiddos so that they feel a lot more relaxed. But then absolutely my focus is on helping them sleep better.
I love that because my kids are definitely more grown now. So I'm not quite in that spot, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And, the memories I have of our survival. Like you just
Yeah.
need to like make it through the night to make it through the next day and try not to just be
Mhm.
overwhelmed with sleep deprivation. So
I know, and you have so many desires in your heart to be this awesome mom, to cherish every moment. But if you're stuck in survival mode, those are just a pipe dream. It's like we want it and it's too far out of reach, and then we like pressure ourselves and feel terrible about it. It's just kind of a bad cycle.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I remember when I had my first, I thought, silly me, thought like you get this download into your head of what to do because your instinct kicks in and it's like, yep, I know what to do. I just, go do it. And I very quickly realized that we all just wing it. Like
Yeah,
we do the best that we can.
yeah. And you're really not going to be perfect, and you're not probably not going to be awesome at it either for a while. And listening to your instincts is tough at first. You don't even know when they're kicking in, and you don't want to trust yourself, and it's just kind of a mess, hot mess.
Yeah. So where do you help people with that? Like, people feel like they're stuck with what their kids are going through or what they're working with. Like, how do they see out of that?
So honestly, everybody comes from different situations, and so I just learn everything I can about people and what's going on, and see where to start. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges of all when you have a kid that's not sleeping well is where do you start? For me, it's usually nature, looking at the holistic principles, like for a younger child, a baby, a toddler, naps. That's a good place to start. How the days, is some kids are coming to me and they're sleeping until 11:30 one day and 6:30 in the morning the next, and it can be all over the place. So just kind of starting there. I don't focus on cry it out or Ferber time checks like a lot of people do. I think that's such a huge focus in the sleep training world where we just dive into that right away and we just like shut the door and walk away, and we want to, I guess, program these kiddos to not wake up and not cry for us. But actually that stuff's based on some old fashioned untrained lack of knowledge and intuition and instinct and research and science. All this stuff it was kind of lacking when they came up with these ideas. It's still practiced quite a bit because really easygoing kids can sleep well with just a little bit of space, and they don't get that worked up. So it's very popular still because of kids like that. But we're at a place now with science that we know so much more about how to support kids and what they need to thrive. That's what I focus on. So I'm all about help understanding, like, is the child going through separation anxiety? Is the child scared to be alone? Does the child love their bed or their room? Stuff like that. That's where we start instead of what other people do. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, it does. And yeah, I remember that well. I think I mentioned when I started my career, I was high risk labor and delivery nurse and working night shift. And you're taking me back to those days. But when my son was little and I was going like 60 hours with no sleep because he didn't nap and I was working night shift and it was insane. So it's hard to even think clearly when you're, at that point in your life.
I know. I actually really love it when people start talking to me or learning about this when they're pregnant, because that's a much better time to be learning, to not be under pressure. to find people that you align with, you like their parenting style or their, what they're teaching. It does it align with your parenting style instead of being in that moment of desperation where we just ask our friends who they used and we quick hire them when we haven't really gotten to know what they're teaching. And, that's a really common way to do it. Just under stress, survival mode, hire someone. And then what happens is sometimes people are unhappy with the approach or it doesn't work and they walk away upset, disappointed, and that can happen repeatedly sometimes. I tend to work with a lot of people who've hired others first. So I hear these stories. It's really frustrating. So I guess it saves time and money and energy and stress to be able to prepare ahead of time, but I think we wait till we're in the pain point.
Yeah, I didn't even know that help existed, quite honestly, at that point in my life. And granted, that was different. It was, oh goodness, 20 years ago. So things have definitely
changed. Me too. 24 years ago, I didn't realize, and someone gave me a book and I was shocked that there was people writing about this.
Yeah.
It's definitely evolved. It's changed quite a bit.
For sure. So you start with kind of environment. What are the stressors? What's impacting the baby, yourself, like all of that. Where do you suggest people go next? Like, speaking of dogs barking. Hold on a second.
Yeah. So you brought up a good point though. It is really important to make sure that the setting is right. There are people out there who don't know about blackout curtains or white noise or people who just think it's not a big deal, but it is. I don't do blackout curtains during the day. Usually I save that for nighttime because, summer happens and morning hours can be too bright. But during the day, I like it to be just too dark to read so that the little child may still be flexible, like going for a car ride or in the stroller and fall asleep in those situations as well. But, sensitivity is a real thing. So there are some kids out there that no matter what, they won't sleep on the go. They won't sleep in different settings. They have to have a pitch black room for a nap, So when you asked where I start, that's actually probably more important, is understanding a child's temperament, understanding the differences and how each child reacts to different situations. What are their needs? It's not really about differences. It's more about attuning to each child, as a parent.
Mm-hmm. And
because there's a big difference. Sorry, I was just gonna say there's a big difference between kids when it comes to their temperament and sleep.
Yeah, 100%. And I know I saw that between mine as well, of like some struggled more than others, and you've got to take each child with, what their struggles are and work with what you got.
Yeah.
So do you recommend parents try to get their kids to be more flexible or try to, have that strict structure of like, okay, we have everything blacked out, we have all the noise machines, we have everything that we need to be able to make sleep conducive?
Well, I know that's a good question because there are sleep consultants out there who are very rigid and doing the same thing for everyone. But I approach it more like what's best for the parents and what's best for the child. So if there's a child who's going to be sensitive to noise and light, then parents don't really have much say in that. If you want your kid to sleep well, then we can't really have a bright room and we can't really have a noisy house. So we work with that. But then when it comes to flexibility, maybe you're talking about schedule, that sort of thing. I try to help parents be home more, or maybe there's a daycare nanny or whatever, and more sensitive to what the child needs when it comes to, let's have the naps at home. Let's try to have the same bedtime. Let's try to keep things pretty structured. But I have 5 kids and I learned that there's ways to kind of work the system where you can be a little bit flexible. So depending on the child, I help parents be flexible so they can go out, they can go run errands, and they can be out on the town sometimes. But honestly, that bedtime thing, there's really not much room for flexibility. It's more about being real. Like, okay, I'm going out tonight. It's important to me, or we are going out tonight. It's probably going to be a crappy night. So it's more about your mindset, just realizing you made that decision. Your child's going to bed late. It might be a terrible bedtime and they might wake up more and they might wake up early, but you just decide ahead of time that it's worth it. And then you're not like mad and frustrated and irritated. And you know what I mean? Maybe you still feel that way, but at least you own the decision. Does that
Right.
make
And it's
sense?
your mindset going into it.
Yeah. So I think that's the best way to be flexible, is more about just understanding what's going to happen and owning it. And then, um, and other ways to be flexible with the schedule is just understanding that your child can take cat naps in the car and as you travel, and then maybe later on in the day you give them a longer nap, or the next day you let them sleep as much as they can to catch up.
Yeah.
So that works pretty well. Did that work for you in your experience? Did you ever do anything like that?
Oh, we did lots of everything, trying to get things to work.
Yeah.
My oldest was very sensitive. He had sensory integration struggles from literally day one. So that
Mhm.
was kind of its own, situation
Yeah.
there. So we did the noise machines. We did, trying to keep it dark-ish, but not pitch black. And there was a lot of anxiety that went with that with him. And so there were a lot of struggles there. But
Yeah.
you go with what you got and try to figure out what works. And we did the cat naps in the car, and I remember my daughter was born then. We did that too, where I was taking him all around. She would often sleep in the car, and so you got to
Yeah.
work with life.
Yeah. And you get to know your child and your child's needs.
Mhm.
And that takes time.
It
But you
does.
you figure out lots of things in a pretty short time, huh?
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So then if you could just avoid the comparing, then you do pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. No, each child is an individual, so yeah, absolutely.
And I'm thinking
So
about comparing to friends' kids. Whew, that's the hard one.
yeah, I know. Well, that and we we only see the highlight reels of most people, and it's so easy, like you said, to compare to other people. And we really need to stop. Like it's a struggle, I think, for everybody at different moments in their life. But yeah, on social media, we only see the highlight reels. We don't see the struggle behind closed doors. We don't see the tears. We don't see, what they're going through in real time.
How old are your kids?
I have three. They're now 24. I'm sorry, 22, 20, and 16.
Okay, so we have a little overlap. And
Mhm.
the reason I ask is because you and I, we work with people who deal with this, and we see our kids dealing with social media, but raising our kids was very different.
Mhm.
We just didn't have this pressure, and it is enough to compare ourselves to our friends, where you're looking from the outside in, and that was always a thing. But now, where you, like you said, you feel like you know these people so well, and you're in their homes, and you see their lives on reels. But like you said, it's not everything. It's not all the struggles, and that's probably good because we don't need to see all the
Yeah.
ugly, and some things are better private. Some people like to cry in their reels and be real. And that's, didn't mean to use both reels in the same sentence, but I get uncomfortable with that. I don't necessarily need to see that. I'll hear about it, and that's okay. But what matters is just do your best and know that that's what matters. You're doing your best as a parent, getting to know your child, and you're trying to just be there for them and love them the best you can, right?
Mhm, for sure. And on that, I'm curious your take on this. This may be more of a hot button topic, but as the kids have grown up through the generations, electronics has taken a huge role in their life. And, I see when I'm out in the community, people with real little kids and they have their electronics 24 hours a day. How
Mhm.
do you see that factors into their sleep? Like, does that constant dopamine feed, impact their sleep, or what do you see that?
So I see that some kids actually are so sensitive to exposure to the blue light and all the um, stimulation, I guess, that parents are definitely see better sleep when they avoid it. So most of my clients come to me with strong opinions about, like, my kid does not go on tablets, my kid does not go on watch TV, or they're using TV to go to sleep. So I just see everything. I don't get very involved. I just make sure and educate parents on blue light exposure, even LED lights and other types of lights. They can mess with our rhythms. They can mess with being able to sleep, not being tired when we want to be. And then the overstimulation from those devices can definitely affect being able to relax or feeling too stressed. Or so there's just a happy medium of trying to limit that, trying to make time for outside play and sunlight exposure and lots of movement. So I focus more on the positive, like how can we optimize sleep, so that it's not me coming down on people and telling them how to do things. Like I said, people come to me with their strong opinions
Oh, I'm
already.
sure. I'm sure. And even as adults, it's the same thing. Like, for
Yeah,
me, I try to shut everything off and I try not to look at it before bed because I find that it calms me down. My
yeah.
husband loves to scroll and like that makes him tired. So,
My husband falls asleep with the TV on.
right. We
I get
all have our things.
I
Like,
know, it's so funny. So what I tell people is, in general, you want to avoid screens of any kind 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. 60 minutes is best.
mhm,
But I've had clients who avoid it from like 4 o'clock on because they can tell a difference.
yeah.
And then one of the ones, this is almost off topic, so sorry for bringing it up, but people will let their kids watch TV or do something on a tablet in the middle of the night or at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, that is a major reward. That is a major way to wake up too, because um, anything but like a soft orange or pink, something like a Himalayan salt lamp or a red bulb, everything else is going to actually tell your brain to be awake.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on making sure we have the right type of night lights, the soft lighting at bedtime. We're not giving them rewards in the middle of the night or early morning because they will wake up for those things. They're going to want them, you know. It's actually pretty tricky. It's so complicated nowadays to figure out all the right things and
Yeah.
how to do it. And
Absolutely. And what are we'll say gaps, but like things that parents don't necessarily think about when we're talking sleep with a kid? I mean, like I said, for mine, it was you just plow through and try to get through the day, get through the night, and move on to the next day. So I wasn't
well,
necessarily looking for like underlying struggles. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, honestly, you said you weren't looking for underlying struggles, but the main thing that people don't know about is that it's really common to have sleep disorders. So if you don't want to talk about that, we can talk
No,
about
that's fine. We can, because that's kind of what I'm getting at is like
that.
there
Is
are
it
reasons
okay?
for this. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Because honestly, people come to me with any age child, you know,
Mhm.
baby or a like the 8-year-old I'm helping this week, and it's so common for there to be an underlying sleep disorder. Actually, I have an episode about this where I talked to an expert who works with airway and sleep on my podcast, and she talked about how we've normalized a lot of the sleep disorder signs. And so we, you know, maybe cartoons have people snoring, and we see people all the time or just walk around with their mouths hanging open. We don't think anything of it, but those are actually bad habits or problematic when it comes to sleep. So just two examples: mouth breathing, snoring, being very restless, tossing and turning. Even the way kids position their heads can be an indicator that there's a sleep disorder. If they're trying to open the airway this way or that way, back or forth, that's a sign. Sleeping really, really heavy. People think that's funny, or man, a train could come through my house and my kid wouldn't wake up. That's actually a sleep disorder sign. It means the child could be lacking quality sleep and they're so exhausted. They go into this super deep sleep. I had two kids who did that, and I didn't know till
Wow.
they were teenagers. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that. In fact, I'll talk to anyone who wants just to find out if there's a sleep disorder survey. I'll do that for free. Just come find me and we'll screen and I'll send you to the right people to get the help you need. Because that's another issue, is finding people who understand airway. So if you don't mind me just sharing another thing that
Please
people
do.
don't think about, um, I think, sorry, I had a thought and it was gone. It was related to the light and so it was the fact that kids are on their devices so much, and I'm obviously not talking about babies. We do have kind of lazy kids now, and so it's not just the outdoor activity or the sunlight, it's also that activities that engage the muscles or activities that engage the senses are really what builds sleep pressure. So I think we have a lot of people with sleep problems right now because they're just not moving enough.
Yeah, no, that makes
Not
sense.
they're not doing enough, you know? I mean, you're getting a lot of sensory engagement on a phone, I guess, but not really, right? Not like in a meaningful way or in a positive way. Does
Yeah.
that
And you
make sense?
think about the kids that are playing sports or just playing
Right.
outside and you come home and you're tired, like
Right.
physically tired because you've exerted all
Exactly.
that energy versus sitting at home in front of whatever, and you just kind of pen up that energy all day long.
Or if you take a child somewhere like the zoo or to the mall, and there's so much going on around them, that's a really good way for us to understand why an activity like that would wear you out. It's because all your senses are engaged. It's so
Absolutely.
interesting. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what are some things that parents can do that can help with this? Obviously, talking to you, right, to figure out what is going on. But are there, do you recommend things like melatonin or like herbal supplements or anything to help? Obviously, talking older, but what is your take on that?
Nope, actually, I've never recommended melatonin. When it comes to herbal supplements for a young child who's going through leaps, mental leaps when the brain's developing, milestones, and teething, that's when I'm like, please, I want you to like overlap all the remedies. And I'm talking the natural things that you can overlap. Use the oil diffuser for an older baby on up, with just 1 or 2 drops of very, very pure essential oils, like lavender and chamomile or lavender and citrus. Like that's such a calming thing for a child who's feeling wired and uncomfortable and restless in their sleep just from development. It can be bad for these kids. Some kids wake up screaming or crying because of how they feel. So we want to do everything we can to calm them. And then when it comes to teething, there's lots and lots of products out there. But, we don't need the Tylenol. We don't need the ibuprofen. We need just the natural things to help them feel well. And then there's things like baby massage. That's really cool. There's ways to actually help baby feel better during the day so that they sleep better at night. So anyways, that's my take on that. The melatonin is going to happen from, or even other hormones that help us sleep. They're going to happen because we're doing the other things that I suggested: going outside, exposure to the sun, fresh air, moving our bodies. That's the best way. And that's actually a really important thing that I ask my clients to do, is get their babies moving and using sensory bins and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does it look like to work with you? I mean, I think personally, sleep studies, sleep diagnosis, like I think, wires all over them and like sleeping studies, like what does it look like to work with you and try to figure this out?
Okay. So actually I start out with that sleep disorder survey, and there's no sleep study there. It's just, do you have any of these signs? And some of it's funny because there's an overlap, most likely people are going to come to me and say, we have trouble with falling asleep. We have trouble sleeping through the night. We have trouble early morning wake ups. I expect to see that on the survey. But when there's other signs on there that are concerning, then I let people know, we got to work on this too. And then I do the more of the holistic and the behavioral side of things. So after filling out a few questionnaires, like one about temperament and one about the everyday life, we jump on a call, usually on Zoom or locally. I'll go into people's homes, and I just give them that first week's list of things to work on. And like I said earlier, it'd be the holistic things. Let's work on security, responsiveness, helping the child love their room. And then maybe week 2 or 3, I actually will help the child learn how to fall asleep on their own. And that's completely assisted. When I say alone, that's an end goal. And it's not necessary 100% of the time. And I say that because parents should be able to respond intuitively at night. They should be able to just follow their heart and their gut and do what's right. And sometimes with the baby, that means we're feeding back to sleep, because babies eat at night. Nothing wrong with that. It's that I like to empower kids at nap time and bedtime to be able to fall asleep happily, peacefully on their own. And maybe just at the last couple of minutes, no one's in the room. And that way, when we wake up again at night, we aren't terrified. We're not scared. And they'll go through times when they are, but for the most part, I want them to wake up feeling at peace and just resettle, if they do wake up.
Awesome. I'm getting flashbacks as we're talking.
So. Are you? Hopefully that helps you understand. So that's
from
helping memories. People on those Zoom calls, I'm giving them like a system of, this is what you do this week. Next week we'll talk about more. The week after that we're going to talk about more. And I just teach them what to do, and it works. And it's really exciting to see the transformations.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm just getting flashbacks of, I forget if it was my son or daughter in their crib and like sitting on the floor, in their room, just trying to get them to fall asleep on their own. Like, don't look at them. Don't just sneak out the door and, like you do what you have to do to survive. But
Maybe
it's,
because some kids, when they make eye contact, it's like a drug, and they're just like, yes,
I
I'm in
know.
love now.
I
But
remember like,
other
don't look at
kids,
them, don't acknowledge them, just be
other
here.
sensitive kids, if you don't look, they
I
cry
know.
and get upset because they're like, well, you're ignoring me. So I don't have like a blanket statement on that. I tell parents,
Yeah.
if your kid gets excited when you make eye contact, then don't do it because you want them to go to sleep. But if it's a soothing, comforting thing, then you can. So
Yeah.
just, you really
I
have to approach this as an individual thing, like every kid's different. So
For sure. And I think it's just helpful to have someone who has been there, obviously, with your 5 kids yourself and just helping people. So there's like a method to the madness. So, like, if you do this, then you do this, then, we can make some progress. So that's
And
huge.
that's what moms don't understand. They think they should just naturally be a sleep expert and that they should be able to do this. And I mean, I've worked with over 1,000 families now, and so I can definitely help you predict things, but I still expect babies to surprise me.
Yeah,
So that's an eye-opening thing.
it is for sure. I know everybody's different. So
Mhm.
I know you've been going through some massive shifts in your business. Can you tell us a bit like what's next for you and, what exciting things are coming up?
Yep. So I love working with families and I always will. So please don't shy away from coming to me if you want help with sleep. But I have been teaching students for about 2 years how to do what I do. And that was a process, trying to figure out how to transfer all of this information and insight into others. But it's been really fun. I fell in love with that. I fell in love with instructing and teaching people to do what I do. And along the way, I also fell in love with helping them build their businesses. So I've got my sleep coach training school, and then I have a mastermind where I help people who are my past students or people from other programs become confident and build a thriving business, because that's why we start a business, right? We don't start a business as a hobby. We don't want it to just be there for something rewarding, which is pretty cool too, but we actually want the income to be consistent, and we want to help lots of families. So I help sleep consultants with that as well.
Awesome. That is really, really cool. And it helps that many more people, right, across the country, around the world, to be able
Yes.
to have better sleep and better sleep in their families, which is massive.
Yeah. Well, I had people coming to me and asking me to teach them my methods and what I do. But that's exactly what I found was, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I can't help everyone myself. I want more people to know about my methods I have tear-free methods, and that's a really good fit for some parents, and it's a really good fit for a lot of kids who just aren't progressing with sleep. And so just the fact that it's very unique and supportive and healthy, I now have like little soldiers going out and sharing, this very unique approach with the world and making more and more families happy and rested and at peace.
I love that. That's awesome. So you've accomplished a ton personally, professionally, and now in your new business expansion. How do you define success? What does that look like to you?
Well, I think that's something that changes over time. For me right now, it's making sure that I am not working too much and that I'm spending my time wisely in work, on the right things, and that I'm sorry for being so wordy here. For me, it's about reaching my goals, reaching my dreams, living large, finding fulfillment, and being true to what's in my heart, those dreams that are inside me, and making sure that I'm always on track there.
Absolutely. And you're right. It does change over time. I mean, as our goals change, so does that definition of success. And that's what I hear from so many people, that, it's a transition through your life and a differing definition depending on where you are, which that's why I like to ask it, because I always find it intriguing.
Well, and I think that I've had some pretty neat people talking to me lately about how you have to be in that place, appreciating where you're at now, because sometimes you reach goals and it's never enough, or you're not recognizing what you've accomplished. You know what I mean? So I've been trying to visualize some of these goals, reaching some of these goals, and then feeling that now. And I think that's really going to help me feel fulfilled and have the joy that I want along the way.
For sure. And it's important to recognize those goals, like the iterative steps as you're making that progress. You don't have to just wait till that end goal. So
Yeah.
it's a big part of it.
I can't tell you how many times I've done pretty awesome things and not given myself any credit and realized later, like, that's really sad.
That was really big.
Yeah. What a
Yeah.
waste.
I know we're all guilty of that. But on that note, if you've had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
Hmm. That's a tough question because oh boy, there could be 5 minutes on this or this or this. But I have a dream to give a TED talk,
Mhm.
and I have decided that it will be about what babies and toddlers need to thrive. And so I would talk about how we don't need cried out, we don't need fervor. That what we really need is gentle parenting, listening to our intuition and our instincts, and being in tune with our child. And not only will that make us the best parent possible, but it will make our child healthiest possible in every way. And this world needs healthy kids. We need healthy adults, big time. You know, that's my dream for the world.
I love it. And yes, we do. So every way that we can make that happen, I support it. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for people that are listening that, want your help, that want to reach out to you, how can they support you in your work? Where can they find you online?
So I would suggest starting with my podcast, which is the Sweet Slumber podcast. You can find that on any podcast platform. And then my website is sweetslumbertime.com. So Sweet Slumber Time. Business is Sweet Slumber. But you'll find me on Facebook and Instagram with that same handle, Sweet Slumber Time. And there's lots of information on my website, free resources, the podcast. I try to teach as much as I can about sleep and being a mother. And in the future, there'll be more about becoming a coach and building a business.
Awesome. I love it. And we'll have all the links below so everybody can come check it out. And I thank you for being on today, Meredith. This was awesome.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.